So I've been playing Zenless Zone Zero for like almost a year, and I've been making a lot of videos and guide about it, and of course play a lot of them, enjoying the story and get sweaty at the end game content, and of course losing 50-50. And I gotta say that Zenless Zone Zero has to be the best gacha game I've ever played. I think this review is gonna be somewhat biased because I'm making the content out of this game, but I will be as honest as possible. So let's talk about the most obvious thing, the visual. And there's no gacha game that has better animation than Zenless Zone Zero, period. The second is not even close. The animation just feels silky smooth, and I think it has to do with the models could do all the shape shifting. I believe that it called this merely effects, and it was highly discussed when it was announced, but we kind of take it for granted and kind of overlook it as we get used to the game. The art direction and the graphics are also amazing. And it's not even that demanding on the hardware because obviously it is designed to be available for both phone and the PC. I think the story are quite entertainable. It's not the best plot, the best story you would see in your entire life, but some of the twists are pretty good. But they do have some of the most impressive cutscenes in the entire gacha space because they cooked really hard on their animation. It is one of the best in the gacha space. At least I think Genshin and Honkai Star Rail's cutscene is incomparable to Zenless Zone Zero's cutscene. Like Genshin is because of the nature of an old game, it ran with Unity, and for Honkai Star Rail it does look flashy, but it doesn't have the same levels of polishment that Zenless Zone Zero has, and I do think some of the cutscenes are on par with the high quality production anime. And the most impressive thing is that it is consistently good. And if you're interested in the animation, I would highly suggest you to watch this video. It is a great video that explain everything about the animation in the Zenless Zone Zero. Now let's get into the gameplay, the combat system. I still remember the first time I see this animation. I usually call it parry, but if you wanna get more technical, it's defensive assist. It blows my mind. There's no other gacha game has this levels of interaction between your characters and the enemy. Because let's be real, most of the game out there, you're just doing some really cool moveset and the numbers just pops up on the enemy. But you're not gonna see your characters clashing with the enemy with these levels of velocity. The presentation of the combat is just absolutely crazy. And I also remember the first time I used the chain attacks. I have no idea what's going on, but it looks so goddamn cool. For those who are like in the game for a while, even though parry and chain attack in this meta doesn't really do a lot in terms of optimizing your damage, unless parrying is tied to the performative score in the Deadly Assault, or it tied to the character's kit like Vivian, it's generally better to not parry it and to just simply dodge it. But as a new player, you just parry all you want, cause I'm actually talking about the endgame content stuff, and I do think that Zenless Zone Zero should make parrying a little bit more relevant in the future, like how they do it with the Vivian, cause it's the coolest thing I have ever seen in the gacha space. And the other thing about the combat system is that it is so well structured that it is easy to learn for the new player, but also structured in the way that you could improve your skill progressively. Our game could get very in-depth, even the game as simple as speedrunning the Mario or even PvP Tetris, but Zenless Zone Zero made these in-depth mechanics easier to learn for those who wanna get hardcore with the game, and it is done purposely. They even talks about it in the interview between the Street Fighter's dev about designing the experience of the learning curve of the player, and to put it in simple terms, like let's say capitalizing the stun window in the Zenless Zone Zero. You gotta save your energy and ultimate and your main DPS resources to burst out as much damage as possible during the stun window. But if you add that with the buff duration on top of that, sneaking in animation cancel and swap cancel, or even try to build the anomaly, the game could get very hard when you try to align everything together. And it's actually fun and engaging because you would feel like you are racing against the time all the time before something runs out. Anomaly is also a really good example of that. It could get as simple as from building anomaly to building another anomaly on top of each other within the 10-second time frame to proc the disorder. And the next level it would be you trying to proc the disorder as soon as possible to get even more damage on the disorder, especially on the frost attribute of Miyabi. And that could get even harder if you're trying to proc that disorder during the stun window. It's a game that is highly engaging, that you're gonna pay a lot of awareness to all the bars, all the meters, and of course the enemy movements simultaneously, but also easy enough for you to get away with getting 1 or 2 things right. You don't have to get everything right, but when you get everything right, it is also rewarding that you could see a noticeable differences on the damage output. And I think this is one of the most underrated thing that people doesn't discuss much in the Zenless Zone Zero, because the mechanics itself feels very natural and smooth, so much so that people doesn't really aware of it. At least this is what I assume. They made the in-depth gameplay a lot more easier to learn than any other gacha game on the market. And I think it's fair to give Zenless Zone Zero 10 out of 10 in terms of combat mechanics without even exaggerating, cause that's how polished it is. As for the daily weekly, I think it's pretty good. It's about 2 to 5 minutes for dailies. It's about 5 minutes if you wanna spend all your energy. And it's about 15 minutes for the weekly quest. And talking about the Hollow Zero mode, I think it's kind of reasonable. And as for the gacha system, I think it's kind of fair. It's definitely better than Genshin, but not as generous as Whirling Wave. You would averagely get a limited characters in 96 pools and about 63 pools for the signature weapon. And as for the guarantee, it would be 180 pools for the limited characters, but I think realistically it's about 160 and 160 on the signature if you lose the 75-25 chance, so it has much higher chance than the limited banner, but not 100%. And as for the grind, you are most likely to grind for the disc, which is the gear for this game. And I think as long as you have the main stat right, with the right 4 set and the right 2 set, I think you are totally fine. And they also give away this thing that allow you to get the main stat and the set that you want, so I think it's okay. But if you want to get the absolutely best sub stat, the chance could get astronomically harder, and I would say that aiming for 3 to 4 on the pieces without the main stat and 1 or 2 sub stat on the pieces that require main stat, you will be fine to beat most of the content. And the last thing I want to talk about is the minigame. Unlike any other gacha game, Zenless Zone Zero is designed to include the minigames, and I would say half of them are actually really good, that it could be sold as a decent game. Of course, not all of them are good, like recently planting the flowers thing, but when these minigame landed, is a banger. There was this Bamboo Tower Defended, and there was this Fall Guys ripoff, but in Bamboo, those are like really high quality and really fun. I know that minigame is not supposed to be the reason that you got into this game, but pretty much all of the gacha game out there would have the minigame to keep you coming back to engage with the game. It's like retention editing for the videos, but in the gacha game. So I think it's probably the standard in the gacha space now. Whether you like this standard or not, minigame is probably the standard of the gacha game today. And I think Zenless Zone Zero nailed it. So yeah, I hope that you would have good overviews with the game. I think it's a really good game that worth trying. And yeah, let me know that what is it that makes you keep playing Zenless Zone Zero. And I guess that's about it. See ya guys.